Welcome. We're Jeff and Christine, and we're intuitive transformation guides and the creators of Inspired Beyond podcast. Our channel is a gathering space for conscious conversations of the transformative healing journey.
Today, we're diving into a profoundly important topic. It's a universal topic. It's healing the feminine and masculine within. It's not about gender. It's about the two core energies that live inside each of us. And we have the honor of exploring this with a woman who has devoted her life to this work, Tiziana DellaRovere. Tiziana is the creator of The Sacred Lovers Within. Her work emerges from decades of deep psychological and spiritual exploration. She has worked with thousands of clients over 4 decades through private sessions, trainings, retreats, and workshops. Tiziana, welcome. We're so grateful to have you here. Would you share a little bit about yourself with the audience?
Well, thank you for having me. This is exciting. As you can hear from my accent, I was born in Italy, in Milano specifically, and my life took me to many unexpected journeys. So one of them was to leave Italy. There I studied, by the way, studied philosophy and law. And then when I came here to the United States, I went into the arts. So I graduated with a BF in art, sculpture, and painting. And then in my early 20s, I had a profound spiritual crisis or awakening, depending on how you want to define that. And that got me to be on a path of personal growth. So then I enroll and I study in the master program in San Francisco of clinical psychology. So there started a whole new pathway for me. And I've been working with clients. I created my own system, explored the masculine and feminine and the deep psyche. And I worked with people for about 40 years now. So there are these two pathways that are adjacent to each other, but they're also pollinating each other all the time.
That's beautiful.
So, Tiziana, to begin, we would love to understand, how did this work of healing the inner feminine and masculine first call you personally?
Yeah, there was a specific call because I started out by working for many years to awaken and empower the inner feminine, and specifically the sacred feminine, in both in women and men. And then at a certain point, as I was progressing with many, many workshops and many different modalities, I noticed something that was not working. And what was not working, I was noticing that the men were actually becoming more and more collapsing their masculine as they were connecting with their feminine. They were collapsing their masculine. And the women, yeah, they were juicy and, a form of self-empowerment, but they weren't putting out their wisdom. They weren't putting it in the external world. And they still were connecting with men that were maybe borderline abusive. The relationship was not working. So what I did, and I noticed it in myself as well. So something was missing. So what I did, I went through a deep period of inner search to find the source of that suffering, that source of that power that I collapsed. And as I went deeper and deeper, and I traveled internally into many layers of discontent and despair and more, what I found inside my psyche was this figure of this man who was in a cave, completely bunched over, covered in cobwebs. And when I connected with him internally, he said, "You have forgotten me. I've been here waiting for you to come." And that began a whole journey to reawaken this part of myself. And I understood that was a part of my inner male, of my masculinity. So then I went through a journey with that, and I started not only reawakening, but healing that piece, because that piece that part told me, I've been here for decades, and I am imprisoned here. And then when I tried to escape, they put me back into prison, because a prison was within another prison, a bigger prison. And then when I still had my voice, they said, and I could speak, but then they cut off my tongue. So this is a real journey of how to cripple the masculine within us. So when I started from then on, I started doing workshops all over with both women and men, awakening their inner male. So I was focusing on awakening the inner male. And the results were astounding because as the women awakened their inner male and connected with that part of themselves, they developed boundaries, they developed a protective mechanism, and they became capable of going out into the world. With the men, as they empowered their inner male, their masculinity reawakened in a way that was positive and healthy. It was a masculinity that could listen to and work with the inner feminine instead of being collapsed in front of the inner feminine. So then it started to create a relationship between the inner feminine and the inner masculine that all the men and women to maintain their connection with the depth of their self and their sensitivity, and yet be very effective in their action in the world. And so the empowerment was much more complete and much more fulfilling. That allowed them to awaken a love, a kind of a love that was really strong and empowering on it, and real and not abstract. Also, the other thing that happened was that the men were able to connect with their partners, their spouses, their girlfriends, more deeply because they were connecting with their femininity, their female self, but from a space that was at structure. And the women were much more able to relate to the masculine in men because they were connected with their own inner masculine. So there was an ability to understand each other and to be in the modality of each other so that they could switch back and forth.
This is so beautiful. We understand, and we're going to get into this. There is a lot of unhealthy masculine in the culture, within ourselves. And so there's been this big push for the divine feminine. But to bring the masculine and focus on the masculine as well, I think is a missing piece out there in a lot of the communication.
Yeah, it's really important because what makes both the masculine and the feminine unhealthy is the disconnection from each other.
Yes.
So there isn't such a thing as a healthy masculine that is disconnected from the feminine. There isn't a healthy feminine that is disconnected from the masculine. So wherever there is a shadow feminine, there is a shadow masculine within that person. Wherever there is a shadow masculine, there's also a shadow feminine within that person. If people talk the unhealthy masculine, they name it toxic masculinity. That's really a difficult name. It's a difficult word because that toxic masculine then is starting to be interpreted as if the masculine is toxic. Masculine is wonderful, just as wonderful as the feminine is. And it's important that we develop that masculine in a healthy way, not in an unhealthy way. And so I'm glad we're defining this as healthy masculine and unhealthy masculine, healthy feminine and unhealthy feminine.
So it sounds like the masculine and feminine, they need each other, number one. But a lot of us don't even realize these energies are wounded until we see the patterns show up. Could you describe that wounded feminine and the wounded masculine?
Yes. So there are two types. Let's start with the inner masculine because it's clearer. So the wounded masculine within us, in men and women, in anybody, regardless of their gender identification. Think about it as yin and yang. There is not a performance. It's not how you present yourself. Our modality of being, there are functions that we have that we need to master. You can have a woman or a person, okay, who wears high heels and long eyelashes and frilly clothing, who is in her masculine. In fact, even more, he can be in a patriarchal and bring out a patriarchal path. And you can have someone who has, strong bicep and go and like climb the mountains, and he's in his feminine. This man, we can have a man. So it's really important to understand that. So the unhealthy masculine, when the masculine disconnects from the feminine, he loses the internal guidance. He loses two things. He loses the internal guidance and he loses the 360 degrees perception of his environment. he loses his receptivity because the feminine is the receptive nature. So what it does without that, giving the projective energy of the masculine is ungrounded and out of control. So when that happens, you have what I call a draconian masculine. It's a masculine that tends to be violent, and tends to disregard the perception of other people and the environment and go for the goal, like at the expense of everything else and everybody else around them. So this happens internally as well. This is one aspect of the draconian masculine. When we are in the draconian masculine ourselves in our lives, we might be working, be totally externalized. And then we might be even successful in what we achieve, but then we feel empty inside. So I have a lot of clients, for example, that have been extremely successful, and they arrive to like 40, 50 years old, and they feel totally like it didn't mean anything. They achieved what they wanted, but it was disconnected from the soul and the guidance of the soul, because they are disconnected from the feminine, which is the aspect that is internal, then connects you with the internal guidance and the perception. The other shadow masculine that we have inside of ourselves is what I call the collapse masculine. And that's actually sort of the opposite. So the masculine, the beautiful masculine energy that we have inside ourselves is when we give, right? It externalizes, when we act in a giving, generous way that produces in the physical world that which we have imagined, that we have felt the impulse to create. So when the masculine is wounded, it collapses. So instead of going outside, instead of going out and be generous, it goes inward and loses power completely. And so that's really common. For women, it's common when they've been abused as a children. And for everybody, actually, literally, but I've seen women a lot. When they are being abused as children through trauma and physical sexual abuse as children, they lose the ability to defend themselves. So their inner male is collapsed. I'm not implying that only women get abused, okay, because men get abused too. But when they are in a relationship where there are signals immediately at the beginning, then tells you, this doesn't feel good. This is disrespectful. This is not a good sign. That's the feeling, okay? Instead of the male coming in and protecting her own inner male and say, okay, I'm taking you out of this situation, then the male is collapsed and cannot protect the female inside. And this is functions as well for men. So the two more fundamental aspects of the shadow inner male, the healthy inner male, is the draconian that tends to be violent, and the collapse that feels really ineffective and powerless. Okay, any questions about this?
Yeah, it's very helpful to sort of see what it looks like when the masculine is sort of collapsed. And I can see that in a lot of our clients that we've
Yes.
worked with, and a lot and personal experiences too. And it really has no bearing on a gender male or a gender female. It's so important for us to get that message out that it is within each of us. So could you give some more examples of maybe some other shadow aspects that maybe some people might see in themselves when it's imbalanced within them?
So, for example, let's say this is a much milder, but we're having a conversation right now, right? I am talking, so I'm in my male right now. I'm communicating to you externally, and you are in the receptive when you listen, right? You are in your feminine, right? So you're listening. But let's suppose that I am in my male and you're also in your male, and you're in your male that is more draconian, for example, and you start wanting to talk over me and controlling me, and you're trying to control me, and you're trying to overpower me by your ejecting your idea over mine or your energy over mine, where I have to contract and shrink down. So this is the case of two masculine relating to each other. Now, I can go in my draconian masculine as well, and I'm going to counteract with the same. Now we're having a fight. Now we're in a fight.
We see a lot of that going on around us.
Okay, so versus if you are in your feminine and I speak and you receive it, and you receive it deep inside, not just in your mind, but you receive it deep inside and you have your own reaction and your own contribution. And then I go in my feminine and I let you speak. And then you speak to me, you talk to me, and I also go inside and I receive what you're telling me instead of being critical, right? Immediately. Or what am I going to say? I'm going to hold on to my point of view so that I win, right? Instead, I receive it, I metabolize it, which requires me to be silent, all right? And then I come out with my own contribution. I go back into my mail and I talk to you. And so now you can see this is not only happens in relationship one-to-one, but in organizations. You know, I have a friend of mine, Donnie McClurkin, who is bringing all this principle to organization, to large organization, where they are defining defining what goes wrong through the understanding of the imbalance of the masculine and feminine in the organization. So it's pervasive.
Yes.
The other thing that happens with the collapsed masculine, what do you want to do? What do you want to do during this weekend? Well, I don't know. What do you want to do? Well, I don't know.
What's for
What would
dinner?
you do
I don't
that?
know.
I don't know. You know, this is a little thing, right? It's a very benign thing. But is this collapse? There is when you have two collapsed masculine connecting with each other and interacting with each other, nothing gets done. And everything feels like a miasmic blob. And it goes into lack of energy, lack of life force, lack of movement. And so someone there has to be in their masculine so that there is a movement. Now, this is the same internally. Okay. So, for example, this we're talking about the good part of the masculine, which get us into the healthy masculine, which gets me in the shadow feminine. So depression is a symptom of the shadow feminine that is like a cesspool of emotions. So one of the aspects of the shadow feminine is going inward so much and be so trapped into the emotion. So instead of going below the emotion and going to the feelings, which I want to talk in a moment. And you just, we all get triggered sometimes, right? We do get triggered. Especially if we have been abused, we get triggered a lot. So we get triggered and we feel these emotions that are coming up. And it is important to feel the emotions, right? You don't want to suppress the emotion. It's important to feel the emotions, but it's not good to stay in the emotion to the point where the emotion devours you. So there is a point, and we know intuitively, there is a point where you can cry, you can go in bed and under the cover for a certain period of time, and it feels nurturing, it feels restorative. But then there is a point where it's actually damaging us, right? So that means we have gone into the quicksands of the emotions. That's where the healthy inner male within us needs to take a step and say, okay, we felt the emotion, we explored that, we explored the feeling, we explored the meaning, where it came from, and the roots and the past. And now we need to move. We need to move through these emotions. We need to get up and go for a walk, get up and prepare a meal. Whatever it is, it needs to move through. And this is the difference between being swallowed by the emotion and being the master of the emotions, to master it. In other words, to ride the wave of the emotion. You ride the wave, you don't suppress it, but also you need to move. And we have a lot of research, and we know absolutely that if you are depressed, one of the things that really helps is go for a walk, exercise, move the body, get into the body and move the energy. So this is a healthy part of the masculine that we really need when the feminine has gone into the shadow aspect. So let's talk about the shadow aspect of the feminine, the unhealthy feminine. Have you ever been with a person? So this is like the all-consuming feminine. It's the quicksand. It's the cesspool. There is the receptivity is so, the beautiful receptivity of the feminine is so exaggerated that it become a all-consuming black hole, basically.
Would you describe this as the victim? Would this be the victim?
That's an aspect of it, but is more substantial. It's more essential of it. Like it's a way of being, right? The victim is more psychological symptoms of that. Because when the feminine receives, but there is no grounding, nothing can fill her up. So have you ever been with people, and there are men that do that, not just women. So you see, it's not about being a man or a woman or any other gender. Have you ever been with people that talk to you and go from one thing to the next, and you give feedback, and then it doesn't work, and they loop and they loop and they loop, and nothing comes in and nothing stays in, and they want more, and there is this hunger and you're there and say, what does this person want? How can I help this person? There is nothing that you can do because they are looping. It doesn't stay. It doesn't metabolize. That's when the healthy male sets boundaries. When we are in this kind of shadow feminine, what happens is that a person who is next to us feels completely drained. Have you ever talked to someone and at the end of the conversation, you feel completely drained? Yeah. Totally drained. And I have no idea why. Because it wasn't an exchange. It wasn't a receiving and giving. It was only a absorbing, but without building anything within, without the healing part, right? So that's when we go into obsessive thinking, feeling that are obsessive, feeling that you can't get out of it. It keeps on looping inside. That's a shadow feminine. And that shadow feminine is activated when there is no male and the feminine is not listened to. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if you have the female is giving you an feeling, an impulse, right? This is your soul speaking to you through your feminine, who is going deep inside. It's internal. It goes deep inside and it connects with the feelings. Now, if it gives the message to you, this doesn't feel good, or I have the impulse to do something, and your male goes, no, this is a bad idea. This is you thinking in terms of miraculous or thoughts, and you can't do that, whatever it is. It suppresses that. You feel and you go, I need to rest. I need to stop. I need to rest. No, you're going to continue to work. That's your male continuously in this obsessive pattern. Then what happens is that the feminine has only one resource to create balance, and it becomes shadow because she's relating to a shadow masculine that is imprisoning her. So she does two things. One is she rigidifies. She becomes rigid because it's the only way that the female creates boundaries, by rigidifying, by shutting down. So you shut down all the receptive part. And when you shut down the receptive part, you don't receive. So you know what happens? You work. The universe is not giving me what I want. And I work so hard for it because you're not receiving. So the universe wants to give you back. The divine wants to give you back. But if you're not receptive and you're rigid, you're rigidified, and you can't receive. Even if someone gives you, you reject it. So do you see? That's the shadow feminine, rigidifies to protect. The feminine is not supposed to create boundaries. Your male is the one that's creating boundaries. But your male needs to listen to your feminine, though the feminine undermines, rigidifying. But the other part that does, it undermines the male, right? So you're overworked and you're all, and you have to go someplace that is really important, and you have to have some really important papers. And all of a sudden you lost your keys and you don't find the papers. That's your female saying, stop. That's your female. The only way that she can do it, she becomes shadow. This is the shadow aspect. Okay. So this happens normally. So in a relationship, for example, how many times have you been in a relationship when a person is being passive aggressive? That's shadow feminine. And you're really powerless because there's nothing more powerful than a passive aggressive strategy, because the other person has nothing. The other person feels fury, rage, but there is nothing to pinpoint it to, really. So that person is in the shadow feminine, and you, if you're not careful, are going to be into the draconian masculine, because you're going to get furious, you're going to get into a fight. You see how that affects the relationship tremendously?
Yeah.
And this,
Sorry,
go
continue.
ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I don't want to be dominant masculine on you right now.
No. I want to be in my feminine and listen to you.
You know, this has been really helpful for, I would say, for us, right?
Absolutely.
It's sad and uncomfortable to see how much this is impacting us internally, in relationships, in corporations, organizations, communities, the government. I mean, it's so pervasive. And I think you've given us some really good examples of how it shows up and how it can cause so much havoc internally, in relationships. You talk about the sacred lovers within. And when we were talking a little earlier, I felt like it was a dance because you were giving an example of a healthy masculine. And it's a dance, and it's so beautiful. Yet let's talk more about that. How does that happen? How can someone who realizes they're imbalanced, whether it's internally in their relationships, start to explore this idea of this sacred lovers within?
So what we have now in a patriarchal society, we have conditioning. Patriarchy is a structure. It's a structure that is in our institutions, in our law, but it's in our relationships, but also is internal, right? We have been conditioned to that. We have conditioning. I'm going to give you an example, okay? At a certain point in my life, after I'd done all these workshops, and we're talking about years, about the feminine and masculine and so on and so forth, I had an experience, a really profound spiritual experience, which I won't go into it. But what the result of this experience was that I went to my altar. I always have an altar. And I looked at my altar, and every single image of saints, of, all the images were male. There was only one little image, one heart, with the Madonna of Guadalupe in it. And someone has gifted me. And I looked at it and I went, oh my God, in spite of everything that I'm doing and I believe in, part of my psyche has been conditioned to believe that a divine has to be male to be powerful.
Wow.
And so that was a shock. This is the woman that was going around all over the United States doing these workshops. And so then I went inside, right? And I heard my feminine saying, take all the images of men, male images, put them aside respectfully, and fill your altar with feminine images of the divine. And to see the reaction that I had internally, the gut reaction, and how that shifted me just by doing that. See, that's the conditioning that is unconscious. It goes so deep, It's because patriarchy is an hierarchical structure where someone is on the top and is superior, and then there is an inferior, a superior, inferior, and then the one at the bottom. It's a whole structure of inferior and superior, and it starts, in my opinion, with the male is superior and more important than the feminine, and the feminine is inferior to the male. And we see it in religion and institution. We see it all over. So is a form of hierarchical control, which is based on warfare.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Why? Because when there is only a superior and inferior, like the white rich male is the superior one, then there is the white poor man, then there is the white woman, and it keeps on going down, and there is all this intersectionality that happens, this web of intersectionality. Once you do that, in order to maintain the position of power on the top, whatever part of the pyramid you're in, you have to defend yourself, because there's always somebody at the bottom or like below you that is going to try to take you down. To be superior to you, to show that he is more powerful, he's more intelligent, and then the one below that are going to do the same. So in order to maintain this structure, you have to be in war all the time. You have to be in a position that is adversarial, that completely lacks any form of safety, where you are in danger all the time, versus a structure that is like a network, which is what I was describing before. So you are in a situation where you actually receive, go in, feel what you have to contribute. You bring what you need to contribute, and it's part of a network. Then creates a beautiful creation where people are not superior and inferior. By the way, that's the problem with certain kind of spirituality, where there is a superior man or woman, a superior person who has resolved it all, right? And is superior to the other that are learning and supposedly. And then you have to give up the power to that person on top, only to discover that they're not perfect. Because there will be a moment where you discover that that's a lie. But that's a patriarchal structure in spirituality as well. This development of the masculine and feminine is a dance. It is a dance because it doesn't have a point of arrival, right? So we are all in this journey and of discovery, and we all contribute. And nobody is superior to the other. We are all learning. We might have skills that other people don't have. That's why we need to create a network. That's why the power is in the horizontal network, not in the vertical one of exploitation.
This is very near and dear to our heart, Tiziana, because we really want to be at the forefront of creating communities, of creating dynamics. Like I have this vision, we talked to a lot of other people as well, of roundtables. So, there isn't this top down thing. It's a roundtable. Each contributes. And I think that there are a lot of people that are hungry for this. They may have experienced the opposite and they're burned. There has to be a better way to do life, to do relationships. And so we were talking about the internal, but this is just as important, that we have to recognize, call it out, and acknowledge that the way we relate to each other and we do life really has to change.
Yeah, because it's destructive and it creates a tremendous amount of unhappiness in the world. Okay, I have two things that I want to say that are really important. And it might sound like it's off topic, but it's not. So we need to understand the difference between emotions and feelings. Okay, that's the journey of the feminine, right? So the masculine is giving, the feminine is receiving. The masculine is externalized through action, the feminine internalized through feelings. Let's talk about feelings. Feelings are not emotions. They're different. So you go inside, because people don't know what it means to go inside. You go inside, you go deep inside. So you pass through the sensation of your body. So the gateway is your body. You feel your body, you feel the sensation. And when you do feel the sensation in your body, the thinking starts slowing down. It doesn't slow down because you say, no, I don't want to think. No, that's not going to slow down. You slow down so if you enter the sensation of your body. When you enter the sensation of your body, you're going to feel emotions because emotions are connected, that are stored in the body. Some of the emotions that are stored in the body are not pleasant because they are traumas that are stored in the body. Right. So some of these emotions that we are reactive emotions, which are the majority of the emotion that we feel, are actually reaction. There are coping mechanisms and that are connected with the past, right? But they are present because they're in your body. So you can't say, forget about it. Don't think about it. That's the past. No, it's in the present because it's in my body. And every time if I have a trauma of abandonment, and I go to the supermarket, and then on the other aisle, I see a friend of mine, and I smile, and he or she doesn't respond, and he's going away. Immediately, that reaction is the reaction of abandonment, and I might think, oh God, he doesn't like me anymore. What have I done? Why is he's walking away? No, the guy was having a bad day, and I have a headache, and didn't see you, but we are reacting in that way. So a lot of emotions, some emotions are wonderful and they're true, but they're not connected with past trauma. But some of the emotions are connected with past trauma. So when we go inside, we have to distinguish the emotions that are connected with past trauma from the feelings. Mm-hmm. The feelings are the guidance. The guidance, so it's below the emotion. You have to go underneath the emotion into the feelings. The feelings doesn't have a story. The feeling is the language of your soul, of your divine within, whatever your core, however you want to identify. And then when that happens, the feeling give you the truth. And the feeling only expresses in this way. This feels right. This feels wrong. Don't go there. This is wrong. This doesn't feel good. This feels true. This doesn't feel true. Take a step in that direction. How does it feel? Okay, correct. It is an impulse. It is an impulse to the very core of yourself. That's the most profound spiritual practice that you can do, is learn how to be in your feminine, in the stillness of the feminine, in the internalization of the feminine, going beyond underneath the emotion. Pass through the emotion. Do not suppress the emotion, because if you suppress the emotion, you're never going to get into the feelings. Okay, it's a territory, so you're not going to reach the feeling. And then feel the feelings, and then you communicate the feelings to your male, to the masculine part of you, the inner masculine, and your healthiness masculine acts upon the feelings that your feminine has communicated to you.
And not the emotion.
And not the emotion.
Right.
But the feelings. Okay, so what does that mean? So think about it. I give an image. They're a good relationship. Before I give you an image, I want to talk about this thing about leadership, because we hear a lot, oh, the man needs to be the leader, right? No, the female needs to be the follower. If the male is not the leader and the female is not the follower, there is no chemistry. The female is the leader in the inner world. So is the one that gives you the guidance. The male is the leader in the outer world, is the one that activates, then puts it into action.
I love that. That is such a great way to create that distinction. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Right. So they are leaders in their own fields, in their own territories, but nothing happens. The leadership doesn't work if they're not connected and listen to each other. As a good, healthy male, listen to the female, and it goes and it acts in the outer world, whatever it is, whether it's a conversation or creating a book or creating a building, whatever it is, whatever needs to be created. Then the female inside of us needs to nurture him, needs to provide him with nurturance, which might be something like, depending on the person, okay, now we're going and taking a walk in the park and just sit down and listen to the leaves and let nature nurtures us. It could be listen to a beautiful piece of music. It could be take a bath and be in water. Whatever it is, reading a book, whatever it is that nurtures the male, so that the male can stop and be nourished, right? And be nourished. So I give an image, okay? The image is a beautiful trellis of roses, of climbing roses. So the wooden structure of the trellis is the male, then gives structures that supports the female. The female without the male would be a rumble of things, it would be all chaotic over there. But as it climbs over the trellis, becomes this beautiful arch. Likewise, the structure would be very plain and very, very stark. But with the beautiful rose, he allows her to blossom, and that beautifies him and nurtures him.
Oh, that is so beautiful.
So I'm your trellis? Is that what you're saying?
You're right, Trellis. Well, and I love how you're describing this, nurturing the male side, and the male supports and I think creates safety for the female. Is that right? Is that how you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Create safety. So remember that, so this is another piece. So you look at your relationship. It works with everybody. Look at your relationship. Your relationship is going to reflect some part of your male and some part of your female. Look at the other person you couple with, and it reflects in the good qualities and the ineffective aspect. For example, so one of the things that exasperated me way back when I discovered the masculine and the inner male was like, why was I getting involved with men who were kind of borderline abusive? What was that? Why? And so what that kind of male reflected of my own inner male, because I was not abusive, right? So how come? Well, but you see, my inner male was not at the very beginning telling me, protect yourself from this. This doesn't feel good. My inner male was not. So in a way, I had my own inner male that was abusing me internally, but not acting and creating separation from that which created pain in my life,
That's
for
a
example.
perfect example.
Yeah.
That's so helpful to see that dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and I'm not talking about, you see, when you are really in a relationship, you have children and there is danger, physical danger, that's a whole other story. Okay. So I'm not talking about, we shouldn't get to that point. If we have a strong inner male, the first time that the man disrespects you, or the woman, because there are men who are abused by women, you
Yeah.
know, they're abusive women. So the other person disrespects you, your inner male should honor the feeling of pain and sorrow and distress and say, oh, no, this is not acceptable. So I'm going to go in greener pastures. I'm going to take you by the hand. This is for men and women, okay? And I'm taking you in a place that is safe.
That's so beautiful. So, Tiziana, before we close, we wanted to have you share a little bit about a book that you're going to be launching this next spring. And could you share a little bit about this?
Okay. The book that I'm going to be launching is called Adorata, The Path of Enlovement.
Mm.
So this is the entrance point, because this does not talk, this is not really the psychological aspect which we have addressed here, which is what I call the sacred lovers within. So the transformation of inner male, inner female, inner masculine and feminine, from adversary to lovers, through collaborator. This is a mystical aspect of that work, and it has a lot of masculine and feminine, but is geared to create the sacred union of divine mother and divine father within the heart. And it's a feminine path of spirituality. Then it takes you to embody 16 different virtues to then lead you to embody that love, which is a love of union of the masculine and feminine. And it's the result of a spiritual encounter that I had with actually Divine Mother in the form of Mother Mary, where I had visitations for 2 years. And it's really about going within and not only relate to the divine in everything that we see around us, in the divine, which is in the transcendent aspect, but it's about embodying that spirit within us by developing certain kind of abilities that we call virtues. There are 16 progressive stepping stones. So I want to make sure that this is understood, but I will write a book about the masculine and feminine in the way that I'm explaining and brought it to you in this interview as the next book that I'm writing. Now.
Well, I can't speak for my wife, but I'm looking forward to this new book coming out myself. I really want to read that. It sounds very, very interesting. And Tiziana, just to wrap it up, this has been such a rich and beautiful conversation. If you could leave our listeners with one simple reminder or blessing about sacred love and inner harmony, what would you leave? What would you say about that?
Yeah, the most important thing is to learn to love yourself, and not only love the good, beautiful, wonderful, talented parts of ourselves. And I'm going to talk to your listeners, not only to the beautiful parts of yourself, but the wounded parts, the parts that might have difficulty in accepting, because the way to heal this fragmented aspect of the masculine and feminine, the way I healed and I studied, and it's infinite process, that inner male, is by loving him. When you perceive them inside, where are giving you impulse to act in a way that might not be healthy, do not try to get rid of them. Never get rid of them. That's your power. Heal it so that it transforms in the opposite. So fear transforms into courage.
Beautiful.
So the most important thing is to also realize that to love yourself, you have to love your inside, your body. You have to be the mother. This is the other thing. That's the book, the Adorata book, teaches you how to be your own mother, to embody the mother energy inside of you. So the good mother always nourishes every aspect of the child. When the child is acting out, it's not about punishment, but it's about making the child feel safe. It's about making the child connect with their own sanctity inside. So I feel that every time you do something that takes your breath away and you go, oh God, I don't want to look. No, look at it hold that part of you. Hold that part of you and listen, because the acting out is because it needs that part of you, whether it's the fragmented part of your feminine or your masculine, needs your attention, needs your love like a mother. Be your own mother. That's it.
Beautiful.
Love that. We're talking about parts work, and I don't know if you know, we also explore internal family systems, but we really see that we are, in and of ourselves, we all have different parts. And I think so many people think they're I'm just this one personality and this is me, but it's complex. And
Right.
we really love hearing your approach to this with the masculine and feminine. So it's been really a wonderful conversation. So thank you, Tiziana, so much for being here today.
Yeah, I've learned an awful lot about the masculine and feminine. I have thought I had an understanding about it before, but this is now it's crystal clear the way you've put it. And I'm sure that our listeners and watchers are feeling the same way. So we just want to thank you so much.
Yes, and we'll put your website and information down below and so people can find you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Blessings to you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.